We're back, and I like to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge all the naysayers that said it wasn't possible for folks to get their reparations. Reparations could include tuition, housing grants, California Task Force says. California's Reparations Task Force releases first of two reports detailing the state's history of slavery and racism and recommending ways the legislature might begin a process of redress for Black Californians, including proposals to offer housing grants, free tuition, and to raise the minimum wage. The 500-page study describes decades of state and federal government actions that harm Black Americans, from American slavery to the more recent redlining, mass incarceration, police actions, and the widening wealth gap between blacks and whites. And I like to take a moment to acknowledge the mass incarceration in Cali. You know who's also responsible for some of the incarcerations in Cali? Check the archives.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
Truancy law. After police killed George Floyd and the subsequent nationwide protests, Governor Gavin Newsom in 2020 signed legislation establishing a task force to study and develop a plan for reparations in the state. The law gave special consideration to Black Americans who are direct descendants to enslaved people. We like to call them on the channel of Kool American descendants of slaves. That's ADOS. The task force report proposes dozens of recommendations, including a comprehensive reparations scheme. The final details, including the exact monetary amount of compensation and the number of Black Californians eligible, will be in the second report due to the legislature by July 2023. We got a year to get it in, people. Let's get it. The task force recommends establishing 10 new offices within state government to oversee administration of reparations. It's unclear how many people will qualify for reparations. The task force estimates that despite California's anti-slavery constitution, about 1,500 enslaved Black people were living in the state in 1852. After slavery was formally abolished, California became a breeding ground for the Ku Klux Klan. Damn. The report says in the 1920s, the KKK hosted more events in California than it did in Louisiana or Mississippi and Los Angeles. Klansmen routinely beat and kidnapped Black and Latino residents. The report also referenced numerous instances of segregation and restrictive housing covenants across the state, and it described the wholesale destruction of several Black neighborhoods and cities. The task force proposes that people who lost homes to government seizures, urban renewal projects, freeway construction, or racist attacks be eligible for housing grants and zero interest loans. Sounds like a win to me. Their recommendations aim to not only address specific instances of violence or prior harm, but also to support future generations of Black Californians. The proposed Office of Freedmen, Education, and Social Services would offer free tuition for Black students in private K through 12 education and to those pursuing higher education in the state. It would also ensure that schools' curricula reflect a more expansive discussion of the experience of Black Americans in a way that is accurate and honest, the report said. The task force also proposed raising the minimum wage, requiring health benefits and paid time off and other workplace protections for workers in agriculture, hospitality, food, and domestic industries where there are large numbers of Black workers but fewer worker protections, the report said. A national example. This is where we really, if you ain't been paying attention, you really should pay attention right now. In March, the task force voted that the African Americans who are direct descendants of enslaved or freed black people living in the U.S. before the end of the 19th century will be eligible for reparations. The task force is also the only statewide initiative examining reparations. Cities such as Asheville, North Carolina, and Evanston, Illinois, have initiated reparation schemes at the local level, but at the federal level, H.R. 40, a bill that would commission a study on reparations, remains stalled in Congress. Who can unstall the stallation in Congress? Your boy the sniffer, your girl Kamala. They ain't even looking at the goddamn bill. I guarantee you that bill is at the bottom of the pile with dust on it. Probably got a couple coffee stains on it. It might even have a booger on it. You know how these folks do. They kiss my ass reparations.
So I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm gonna do something that's only gonna benefit black people.
Giving them extra money for reparations. What do they want? Get your bootstraps on. You heard Obama. You heard Obama. You know how they fuck names up. You heard Obama say, put your bootstraps on. You know how they do? Assembly member Reggie Jones Sawyer, a Democrat representing Compton, is pushing to extend the life of the task force by another year. All right, this was under the Assembly Bill 2296, which passed in the Assembly. The task force would also continue its study through July 2024. Over the summer, partner organizations such as the California Black Power Network and the Black Equity Collective, dang, I love these names, BEC, baby, BPN, they will host a public listening session about the report findings. The task force will reconvene its hearings in Los Angeles in September. So what do y'all think, man? A lot of folks didn't think this was possible. A lot of folks just wanted to vote for Biden and yeah, he's gonna help black people. Y'all don't do y'all history. And I don't know how many times I gotta replay videos for y'all to understand that Biden wasn't for us.
Listen, you gotta come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see
Take a look at my record, man.
He pandered, it worked. He got us. We've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray all over again. Malcolm X taught us this. Farrakhan taught us this. Martin Luther King taught us this. Why are we still falling for the bamboozlement of the Democrats?
Voting reform to prison reform to actual cash payments to people who lost land, who lost business value, thanks to what this report calls racial terror. And it is, as you said, a first in nation kind of report. And it's preliminary. These are suggestions to lawmakers, and they are many.
A California panel recommending a slew of changes as it studies how black residents should be compensated for the lasting scars of slavery and segregation. An interim report telling lawmakers in Sacramento they should consider how to pay descendants of slaves. The panel also recommending programs to get black people registered to vote and keep them on the voter rolls, programs to repay black land and business owners for value lost in racial terror, programs to get students free tuition, programs to house vulnerable populations. Plus, the panel wants lawmakers to allow incarcerated people to vote, make mental health care and rehabilitation a first priority for inmates, and pay them for their work while in prison.
Segregation was firmly established in California in 1870.
The panel has so far logged hours of testimony, hearing from experts on and victims of racist systems, all with ideas on changing California's approach to housing, policing, and education.
Indeed, the very history of California starts with anti-blackness.
The report, a tentpole in a national conversation about how to amend a racist legacy more than 4 centuries in the making and put black Americans on a truly level playing field.
Today we have more in the arsenal to discuss this issue besides just slavery.
Be they land reparations, education subsidies, checks, or all of the above, experts hold diverse ideas about how to close race, wealth, education, and land ownership gaps.
We could give an income tax holiday to black Americans that would do
an incredible amount of good, and it would also stimulate the economy. On a national scale, the history of reparation payments is dotted with failed programs and lackluster amounts. Some think reparations aren't about the money at all.
We've seen a number of structural governmental policies that have helped particular groups find their way to saving money, to creating wealth, to building wealth, to buying property, to starting businesses, and sending their children or themselves to college.
A renovation of our national floor plan to put us all at the same table. Now, this report does also call on the federal government to act as well. This is a big question mark now, whether other states will follow with similar task forces.
That is the question.
This task
That
force
is the
set to
question.
put out its final report next year.
All right, James Packard for us in LA. Good night, James. Thanks.
That right there, that is the question. Will other states follow? I know a lot of listeners are in different sectors in different states and cities. This is where you call your congressman. What do you think about this in Cali? You don't even have to be technical. A lot of y'all are scared to do content like this because you say you're not certified. The fuck you gotta be? Your blackness is your certification, goddammit. All you gotta do is just read. What the fuck's wrong with y'all? Anyway, y'all got 400 or 500 years to pay back. A lot of lives y'all done slain, that y'all are still slaying. Black economic growth and prosperity have been critically hindered by racist policies aimed at suppressing African Americans even after the end of slavery. That means we need to get our Black Wall Street back. We need to have our Tulsa back. We need to have our Philly back. They you know, when it comes to black on black crime, or, you know, a black man shooting somebody of another culture, they call him a terrorist, right? Well, we've been terrorized for 400 or 500 years, goddammit. We need our Tulsa back. And you say black economic growth and prosperity, it means we should take a page out of Claude Anderson's book and buy black, stay in black. This is reparations talking. There's ideas out there. We don't want to just have an economic holiday. We want to buy our own. Buy our own. Keep that money circulating within. Let the money circulate black delegation like. Reparations could include tuition. What type of tuition we talking? Like for a D1 school, let's say Clemson. If I wanted to go to Clemson, my black ass should be able to go for free of charge, goddammit, because in Clemson, you know how racist it was in South Carolina. What do we think, man? These are for the naysayers. It was like there's no possibility of reparations. You have this. I'm for reparations, and I'm for anything that gets the ball rolling. This is getting the ball rolling. I wanted to know what Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore had to say about this, or have they even had discussions with this task force? I'll be listening to them. I know they about to post something. Until then, be cool, be safe, man, and most importantly, know your past and the present. You can fix that future. Thank y'all for listening. Cool out.
I think you have to, first of all, decide who's in and who's out.
Okay.
You have to decide who is included when you do reparations. That is the people who bear the cost. Those are descendants of American chattel slaves, slavery in this country. So there has to be some economic redistribution to American descendants of slavery. And that's one of the things that's just kind of gotten me in trouble. People are like, oh, well, you're excluding other black people. No, you have to decide.
If you're somebody whose family immigrated from the Caribbean in 1900, you've been here for 100, your friend's been here for 119 years, 120 years. On some level, you've experienced America's, you know, policies against American descendants of slaves, even if your family did not participate in it. Because I always feel like, you know, your race is often determined by what the police think you are when they pull you over.
I think it's because it's not just about like experiencing racism. It's about who built the country and who has been kind of bottom casted. There wouldn't be an America without slaves, and we are the descendants of those slaves.